Hello, everyone. This is the Free American Press with your host, Alexander Horat. Today, we are joined with my broker and mom, Maria Horat. She is the founder of Gold Country Properties, a small business, small real estate business that my dad and her and me do here in California. And we also do real estate nationwide in the United States. So if you need any help with that, please let us know. Uh, and today we're going to be talking about how home ownership is becoming much more difficult to attain now in these days compared to uh, decades ago. So I'd like to give the floor to my mom to speak on this issue.
Hi, Alex. Thank you. We're seeing a rise of institutional investors snatching up essentially hundreds of homes in metropolitan areas and urban areas. And that's contributing to the fact that less and less regular home buyers can afford or able to purchase homes. We're seeing hedge funds and private equity firms driving up the cost of housing. For example, in this article here that I'm reading, investors have been busy gobbling up homes. The first 3 months of 2024, investors bought about 15% of homes sold according to Realtor.com. And in some cities such as Springfield, Kansas City, and St. Louis, Missouri, investors purchased around 1 in 5 homes. And in 2022, these investors' own homes hit their peak at about 30% of all homes in America. So about 30% of all homes for sale in America in 2024 were bought by institutional investors. MetLife Investment Management says that institutional investors might control 40% of U.S. single-family rental homes by 2030. That's a huge piece of the pie. So Wall Street investors could be also, as a result of these, driving up rents, which explains that the reason one of the main reasons why homeownership is becoming less and less attainable and is the primary vehicle for accumulating wealth and is becoming more and more out of reach for many Americans. So one question that one we could be asking ourselves is whether these institutional investors are the main factor enough to rise housing prices. And economists have recently begun to explore the relationship between institutional investment and home and rental prices. And this one research done by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis in 2020 found that purchases by institutional investors, as measured by the share of properties owned by all institutional investors collectively in a metropolitan statistically area, increased one, the price to income ratio, and especially in the bottom price tier, the entry point for first-time home buyers, and two, the rent to income ratio generally, especially where the housing supply elasticity is high. So in essence, yes, institutional investors are not only rising the prices for the purchasing home power is decreasing purchasing home power for regular home buyers, but it's also driving up rents.
Yeah, I think you bring up some good points. I'd like to share my screen just so the viewers can see what I'm talking about. So, according to Fortune, it says in 2004, the number of first-time home buyers was nearly 3.2 million. According to the National Association of Realtors data shared with the Fortune on Tuesday, by 2024, that number had plummeted to just 1.14 million. And we also see some pretty bad data that the median age of home buyers from 1981 to 2024, it was 29 for first-time buyers, and now it's 38. And for repeat buyers, it was 36 uh, in 1981, and now it's 61 here in 2024. So, do you think there's some other factors as well with inflation and the interest rates, and also in regards with these uh, corporations buying up the real estate? Do you think there's a lot of different things intertwined? What are your thoughts on this data?
Yeah, I definitely think inflation plays a huge factor, and we have quantitative easing taking place for a long, long time, and that's increased the money supply, and that the interest rates have been really low for a long time, which has resulted in higher inflation, and so that's definitely a factor. With higher inflation comes, rise in home prices as well, but the wages are still the same, and people are not making that much more than they were years ago. So, according to this other article about bank rate, 42% of aspiring homeowners already can't afford a down payment. So that's a big portion of home buying. You have to have some money to buy a house. Redfin reports that real estate investors purchased about 44,000 homes in the US during the first quarter of 2024. And that's close to 19% of all US homes sold during that time frame. These large investment companies are making the home inventory shortage worse by buying up most affordable properties and renting them out, making it even harder for individuals and families, especially first-time home buyers, to get themselves onto the housing ladder. So when we think about investors, there's a difference between the institutional investor and just a regular mom and pop investor that just sells a house and then maybe a rental, and then they go out and buy another one, right, through the 1031 exchange process. The institutional investor, they are the big corporations like BlackRock, and they might purchase 100 or more homes in a single city, creating a portfolio of properties that they can rent out to tenants for a profit. So that's a big difference there, because a lot of people, when they think of investors, they think the same thing, whether you are just a regular home buyer that's buying a home for investment or an institutional investor. So there is a big difference, because there's a difference on how investors affect housing inventory because of their sheer size and deep pockets. The institutional investors obviously can have a massive impact on home inventory on both local and the national scale. Particularly in the metropolitan areas and the growth areas where companies can swoop and get a large, amount of homes or a bulk deal on inexpensive homes. And to make matters worse, the way they compete with the traditional home buyer is that they buy the homes as is, and they buy for cash. And home sellers, of course, would prefer that as to someone who's getting a loan to purchase a home, right, where they need to have an appraisal, right? The lender sends out the appraisal, and a lot of times the house doesn't appraise, or the home is in need of a lot of repairs, and so the home seller have to take care of that. So the bottom line is that as more and more home buyers, aspiring home buyers, are less likely to purchase homes in the next years, the years to come. So one of the things that home buyers can do to get ahead of these would be to make an all cash offer. But how many buyers can make an all cash offer, right? You're competing against corporations who have billions of dollars. They have deep pockets. You can go light on your contingencies, waiving certain contingencies, but of course that can put a regular home buyer at risk of being able to get stuck with a lemon or something that they're going to lose a lot of money on later on. One that I do recommend would be to expand your horizons, one strategy, right? So you might want to go to a less expensive market. And what are typically your less expensive markets? The rural areas,
Yeah, you
right?
bring
The
up
areas that are outside the boundaries.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, and that's actually one data that I wanted to share with everybody was that in rural areas, its home ownership is 81.1% compared to 59.8% in the urban areas. Uh, so why do you think the home ownership in the rural areas is so much more than the urban areas?
Well, we saw like when we had COVID here in the US, a lot of people were buying second homes in rural areas, and a lot of people were even relocating to the rural areas. And as a result, the home prices in rural areas also went up considerably. So while the home sales in the cities were declining, the home sales in the rural areas were getting, a lot higher. So we've seen that happen during COVID. A lot of people were working remotely, but not everyone can work remotely. So there's definitely challenges, right, to doing this strategy, but it might be one that a lot of people can afford to do, because typically the home values in rural areas are a lot cheaper than they are in the urban areas. Another article I wanted to point out is that first-time home buyers are an endangered species in the U.S. This article has some figures from the National Association of Realtors, which show that only 24% of house sales last year were first-time home buyers. Only 24%. That's down 50% in 2010. The typically purchasers, all, as you mentioned, also older than in the past, with an average age of 38.
It sounds like Americans are tapped out monetarily wise, at least for the first time home buyer.
Right. People are less likely now to be able to save money. You know, everything, the cost of living is much higher nowadays. And another one of the challenges also, I mean, buying homes in a rural area, of course, you have a better chance of being able to afford in a rural area than you do in an urban area, in a metropolitan area, in a big city. But there's also challenges, as say homeowners insurance are a lot of times, especially here in California, higher than they are in the cities. But that will probably be offset quite a bit by the home prices, right? We see that the housing affordability is in a decline. So this one chart from the California Association of Realtors shows that 2024, the housing affordability traditional index was 17%, which was down from even 2010, which was over 50%. And then we also see that, and this is again what we were talking about, wages. Everything's went up except for wages, right?
Yeah.
So in 2012, if you were to buy a home in 2012, you needed an income of about $90,000, right, to buy an average home in the Bay Area in 2012.
Yeah.
Now you need an income of a yearly income of $334,000. That's almost 300% higher than 2012, right? Than 2012. So that's where, you might have a family that's every member of the family is working full time and still unable to buy a home.
Right.
So the minimum annual income required is staggering, almost 300% more in the Bay Area in the last, 15 years. That's
Yeah.
even well above inflation rate, right?
That's
So
correct.
the solution would be to try to relocate to areas that are more affordable. That would be the solution, right? It might not be for everyone, but we have several strategies that we have taken in the past ourselves to accomplish that, and we're happy to share those details with anyone who's interested in possibly doing the same.
Yeah, that's definitely true. You could reach out to us, Gold Country Properties. We're based here in California, but we can help you throughout the United States. And we definitely can help you with your real estate journey. And if you're a first-time home buyer, we can definitely help you with that as well. Or if you're looking to sell some real estate, we could also help you with that in case you're needing our services. And I'd just like to thank my mom for doing this video with me. And I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Um, and I hope everyone has a good rest of your day. And please comment and share this video with your friends.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.